everybody. It's Horror Movie Yearbook. We're back in the swing of things.
We've back.
We've done 2 episodes at our regular pace. We're doing it. We're back. We're doing good. We were just talking off air about the Hot Ones challenge. We're going to do that. Don't worry. I'm just putting it on air again to remind us that we will be screaming through whatever hot sauce we eat.
So what I think we need to do is just like model ourselves in that episode, whether it's a Tiny Terror or like the main, after the show, and just ask each other
horror
questions.
Horror questions,
yeah.
and it'll start to get personal.
Sure, it could. It's so intrinsically tied to who we are that it could become personal. I'm not going to ask you about too much. I don't want you to.
Right, because I don't know what's going to come out of me. I've seen some of these hot ones. The Jennifer Lawrence one is a good meme, but a good meme usage. Have you seen the one where she's like,
I don't know.
She's like crying and she's like, no, why would you do that? It's a good use for like memes on
Very
Instagram.
Good. Yeah. So we won't get too deep, but but we want to, it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun.
We are going to do that next full episode, though. We already planned it out. Freddy versus Jason Sands.
Yes.
Get ready. We have a very fun Tiny Terror that is available now on our Patreon. patreon.com/MidwestPodnet, where Willie previews the show that he will be commentating next week.
Yes.
Here in Metro Detroit.
Apologies to those who don't give zero craps about professional wrestling. I mean, we like it, but we can't say our whole audience does.
I think we've made sure that the Tiny Terrors are stuff that are outside of the norm. Yeah. We've made clear that you can skip the Tiny Terrors if you are not interested in what we're talking about. But this week we were talking about our bowel movements for a good 10 minutes.
True. But I'm involved in this wrestling show, so please give it a listen.
Right.
Support your boy even if you don't care.
Right.
About wrestling. It'd be nice,
Yes, and so once again, it's the. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. I know the name. What's
Northwest Championship Wrestling is the name of the company,
and it's going to be in Metro Detroit in Berkeley at the Knights of Columbus.
July 28th.
Yes, and Willie will be commentating, so you can check it out on YouTube, on their YouTube page, which you can type in their promotion, or you can go to the show too. It's a lot of fun.
If you're in the area,
and Willie will
fly out.
Yes, and Willie will get you hyped up if you listen to that episode.
I'll do my best.
That's about it. We're on Twitter still. We are on Instagram still.
Somehow.
HM Yearbook on Twitter. Horror Movie Yearbook on Instagram and Facebook.
You can email us.
horrormovieyearbook@gmail.com. We got that out of the way. You ready to...
where's our emails? Look, that's not fair. I'm going to pump the brakes. We have not been active for a little bit. We're just getting back in the groove. But, I'd love an email.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to beg, but I'd love an email. I'd love to hear that, somebody out there is happy that we're back.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy.
No.
No.
You
got a tiny little child at home right now.
Yes, and just so you know, I was very smugly checking the baby monitor at home just to make sure that I was right. Guess what I was? Is
he sleeping?
Yeah, I was right.
Like a baby.
Like a baby.
Indeed.
Dude, do not question.
Like a Rosemary's baby.
Oh, just so you know, Joe reached out. He had to see a picture of the... he said, shout out to the Matterhorn and the Marlin song that played on the coaster at Cedar Point.
He remembers.
Because we were playing the Scott Stapp Marlin's You Will Soar song.
Somebody had it blasting on their phone. And whatever phone that was impressive. Because you could still hear the song, not loudly, but you could still hear it over the sound of the tracks crunching.
And the Matterhorn music that they play, but you could hear Scott Stapp singing about the Miami Marlins.
It was impressive.
And then he also had to know that stupid-looking alien from All Hallows Eve. He had to know what it looked like. So
he is pretty stupid-looking.
So there you go. Are you ready to hop in this time machine?
Let's do it.
We are going so far back.
Yeah, we're not born yet.
No. My parents are not born yet.
This is what,
1951.
My parents aren't born yet.
Yep.
Wow.
We have no real connection to this time.
Zero. I mean, my grandparents were around.
Yeah.
So, but they're all dead. There's no not funny way to say that. They would be laughing. Well, most of them.
Some people are always they're like, they get freaked out by watching like old movies or old shows and stuff, and they're like, all these people are dead, and like it freaks them out. It doesn't freak me out. It's the nature of time. It's the past.
They're fine. Yeah, I mean, like, whatever you believe, they're good. Like, trust me.
Believe me, they've given us indelible works.
Do you think that those people would want to be alive right now? No.
I don't know. When we hop in this time machine, we look at some of this crap that's on the TV. Then
yeah, that's true.
You ready to hop in this time machine?
Let's do it. This is a deep dive, so I need a good sound for this one. I'm going to try my best. You ready?
Yeah. Very good. That is like, yeah, very 1950s science fiction.
That was my goal. So thank you.
So we're back on April 6th, 1951, to be exact.
Spring has sprung.
Here's what's going on. Yeah, right. It's around WrestleMania and Final Four season is how I remember it. I don't think either one of those were a big thing.
Nope.
What's going on here? Harry S. Truman is the president.
Truman, yes.
He
gets name dropped in the film.
He does.
Yep.
He does. The #1 movie in America, something called The Royal Wedding. It's got the great Fred Astaire.
I like Fred
Astaire. Yes. The #1 song is "If" by Perry Como. Let us. You a big Perry Como guy? Let's listen to this bad boy here. Imagine like sitting around driving the old what kind of car? Like the old hot rod? Listening to that shit. What the hell is that?
Oh, I'm crying. You asked me if I was a big Perry Como guy. Holy smoke. I'm happy that it only took 2 episodes into our return for you to make me cry laugh. Are you a big Perry Como guy? No, I'm not.
Answer the question.
No, I'm not. Yeah, just cruising on a beautiful April.
That's what they used to
evening.
Do.
Listen to some Perry Como.
That's what they used to do back. I seen American Graffiti. They used to drive down the old strip.
Yep. Hoping you might make it with a girl.
Go into the sock hop.
Yeah.
Wolfman Jack on the old radio playing Perry Como, spitting the one.
Hey, I held hands with Betty Jean.
You know the funniest thing about like that is like Halloween Ends just had like some dude like Wolfman Jack. he was like spinning the turntables at Haddonfield at the time.
That's
Haddonfield
right.
Never got out of the 50s.
What's funny is the 50s were actually like filthy. Like there was a lot.
We're going to talk about that in this movie at some point.
People can like lie and kid themselves all they want. The Filthies were 50. Because you know I know
50s
this.
Were filthy?
Filthy. 50? Did I say 50?
You said the Filthies were 50.
Damn it. The 50s were filthy. The Filthy 50s. That's hard to say.
It is, yeah.
Because here's the thing. Like, we remember the 60s, right?
Yeah.
Okay. We had to get there somehow.
Yeah.
There's some weird stuff happening behind closed doors. The only difference with the 50s is like everybody wanted to hide their weird behavior. In the 60s, they're like, whatever.
Yeah, just where we go through those times. Like the 20s were just the 20s were like the roaring 20s. It was
kind of wild,
big orgy all the time. Yeah, constantly.
And then people kind of.
Well, the 30s, the Great Depression, they were having sex, but it was kind of sad.
Kind of bummed out.
Yeah, the 20s were like drug fuel. Like
the 40s were too busy fighting.
Yeah, we were like focused on something.
Yeah. And then the 50s, it's like, let's do it again.
Let's do it again, but let's be weird about it and
let's keep it quiet. Yeah.
Dress like greasers.
They were doing it though.
Greasers were a big subculture. Men are getting DA haircuts, which stood for duck's ass.
Yeah.
It was parted down the middle and at the back.
Yeah, I know what
that was. That was a big thing. Rotary phones were a big thing. Let's see what's on the old the boob tube. Something called Space Patrol, the Gene Autry Show, the Cisco Kid, Beulah, Looney Tunes. Finally, we're getting some good television. Okay, Tom and Jerry.
All right.
Big toys include Tonka trucks, toy guns, spinning tops, and color phones. I'm sorry, man. You know, everybody liked to look back in the 50s. It sounds pretty lame to me.
Kind of. Tom and Jerry's cool.
Yeah,
Looney Tunes is cool. So cartoons, I can get with that.
It's funny. That's the subversive stuff there.
I know. Everything else is
the
cartoons.
Just like, everything else is kind of lame.
Yeah.
But it's those kids that would grow up in the 60s and start having sex.
Thanks, Looney Tunes.
Yeah, in the fields. That's what you did in the 60s.
In the flowers.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have a great handle on human behavior throughout history.
We know it.
We are talking about the thing from another world, though. Scientists and American Air Force officials fend off a bloodthirsty alien organism while at a remote Arctic outpost. Outpost. Oh, boy, this is
Neither one of us can talk.
This is
tonight.
it's in the gutter too. Because I said outpost.
Outpuss.
Boy. Okay, so IMDb has this credited to, and we're going to talk about this, I think, a little bit later, because we've got a bit of a poltergeist situation with this movie.
Yeah.
Directed by Christian Nyby and Howard Hawks.
This threw me off, by the way. I did not. When I was watching the opening credits, I went, "What?"
You thought it was Hawks?
Yeah.
It is pretty much at this point. It's credited to Hawks.
Yeah.
He produced it. He wrote it. It is very much in his style, but Christian Nyby was the director.
Did Christian Nyby do anything beyond The Thing from Another World, or was his career kind of just?
So he wasn't. So the thing with him is he was an editor for Hawks. Like he edited like Red River and stuff like that, leading up to this movie, and he'd wanted to get into directing, and Hawks kind of. It was kind of
this like throwing a bone kind of thing, like
yeah,
okay.
Now he did a lot of TV work after this. I'm looking at like he did some like Lassie and Kojak, stuff like that. A lot of TV series I'm looking at. Mayberry RFD, Gunsmoke.
Oh yeah, classic.
Yeah, so a lot of TV, but yeah, I mean this was kind of Howard Hawks throwing him. He's like, yo, you edited a lot of my movies lately. Like, here you go. I've got this thing I'm working on.
Thank you for that.
I'm a little too busy because Hawks made a ton of movies.
They all did back then. It was insane. Yeah.
So yeah, there is a bit of a controversy. I think Hawks has said that Nyby directed it. But yeah, it does remind me a little bit of the Poltergeist who directed the Spielberg. Or
it is similar.
Toby Hooper, yeah. Where were we? Written by Charles Lederer, John W. Campbell Jr., which it's based on. Who goes there? Also, should we talk about Frozen? Let's hold off on the short story until we get into the meat. Starring Kenneth Tobey, Margaret Sheridan, and James Arness. All right, let's do basic non-spoiler thoughts before we get into the plot here. Willie, you've seen this movie before, correct?
It's been a very long time.
Same here. I watched it in college.
A decade
it's
plus?
Probably been. Yeah, probably 15 years.
15? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I was going to say the same thing. Yeah.
What were your thoughts? Can you remember your thoughts the first time around, then this time around?
So I remember the first time around thinking like, okay, this is pretty cool in terms of I had seen the 82, the John Carpenter, The Thing, before I ever saw this film. The most I had seen of this film was actually on the TV screen in Halloween, as they're watching it, funny enough. And I watched it and thought, okay, this is kind of a neat, like, I don't know if I even knew there was like a short story or like a base, I can't remember, but this is kind of a cool like 50s version of The Thing. Like, okay, I can see like what John Carpenter took from this and like what he was able to do in the 80s that they could never do back then. Kind of like The Fly, right? So
yeah,
kind of like Cronenberg's The Fly, or even The Blob. Similar to both of those, where they took a movie of a certain time that was limited in both its budget and its ability to its shock factor. Like the 50s were kind of sanitized in a certain way, so you couldn't be showing too much in the way of blood and guts. And they kind of, the directors took that concept and made it very 80s and very of that time with the remakes. So I thought it was a cool prototype for that. But I don't remember a lot about. I remember that there being like a vegetable aspect to the monster. Like that stuck with me, where I was like, "Is like a veggie." But that was about it. Like there was not a lot of stuff that was like ingrained in my brain. Watching it this time was pretty much like watching it the first time. It was kind of like I knew I had seen it, but it wasn't. I remembered so little of it that it it was basically the first viewing. And this time around for me, God, it's tough. I enjoy it for what it is. Do I think it's a great movie? I do not. Do I think it is a classic of its time? Debatable. Do I think it does some stuff effectively? And do I think it actually... If there's one thing it has in common with its 82 counterpart, it's that the two of them share the fact that I do truly believe they were both ahead of their time. And I mean that in the sense that I even with the 50s version, I do think that it's not as thrilling as a lot of the monster movies back then. It's not as in your face as a lot of the monster movies back then. There's a lot of talking and debating and philosophical conversation. There's a lot of science versus practicality, like versus science versus military, I guess, in a lot of senses. But like, how far should we take science before we say this is we're making a mistake? There's actually quite a bit of that in this movie. Unfortunately, the movie winds up being a little bit boring because of it. It gets too bogged down in some of that stuff, and it's not able to kind of cut loose with the monster as much as I wish it would have been able to. But I do think it's ahead of its time, and I do think that I can see why my understanding of Carpenter remaking the film or making his version of the story is that he was a huge fan of Howard Hawks, and he was not reading Who Goes There. He was watching The Thing from Another World, and that was his initial kind of falling in love with that story. Now, I know that he read Who Goes There after the fact, before he made The Thing, primarily because The Thing is a lot closer to Who Goes There than The Thing from Another World is. But I can see watching this why John Carpenter said to himself, I would love to make my version of that movie. I'd love to do something new and different with that plot. I totally get it, and I didn't dislike this movie by any means. It's a solid 50s sci-fi horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I stand with it. It's kind of a lame review, but
fair enough.
They're not all the best or the worst either.
Right.
We live in a world of the best and the worst sometimes. But you've seen this before.
So yeah, I had watched this. So I actually took the coolest college class of all time, which was a John Carpenter
Dude, I'm
class.
so jealous. It was like a
Central
film
Michigan.
studies class, but it was based around...
It was all Carpenter and his influences and all sorts of stuff. And it was awesome. Professor Craig, my favorite professor, who was also my broadcast law professor, which was not my favorite class, but an incredibly sharp man who understood like the ins and outs of broadcast law.
This was at...
was at Central.
Central. So,
yes.
Was this a film studies class where they rotated what the
yeah,
focus was?
So I actually took a couple of different ones while I was there. I took an early horror one.
With him?
No, rotating professors. So
was he teaching like a Carpenter class every semester? Or was this like...
It was kind of like... it kind of seemed like...
Or you happened to get the Carpenter semester that he did?
It was there, yeah, and it kind of seemed like... Because there were a couple of times while I was there, like, I was not interested. But I also took an Oliver Stone class, and it was... Wow. The Oliver Stone class was insanity, but it was a different professor, and it kind of seemed like the professors got their choice. It kind of seemed like they had
That's so cool,
almost like an elective. And they said, "Well, I'm an expert."
So they had their general film studies classes, and then they had like the one that they could be like, "I want to do a blah class."
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And because the structures of the Oliver Stone and the John Carpenter classes were very similar. It was like you watch a movie, blah blah blah.
That's cool.
So they were elective classes anyway. But it seemed like an elective, like a rotating like choice for them too.
I took a film class in community college at OCC in Royal Oak, and it was the same professor every time, but every semester he would pick a different either director or actor.
Right.
And the entire semester was focused on films of blah.
Yeah.
When I took it, I got Hitchcock, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Really cool. I fell asleep during one of his movies that I won't name because I'll be shamed for it, but I fucking fell asleep in class, and I was like, that sucked.
Was it an early movie or just not? Or like
it was
early...
a popular one.
Was it an early class or was it just a boring movie?
It was a boring movie.
because I fell asleep during some classics. But my class was like 8 a.m, and I was in my early 20s.
This was the movie. But I liked most of his stuff.
Yeah.
And then Nikki took it like a semester or two later, and she got Marlon Brando.
Yeah.
So it's funny he like kept rotating though.
Kept rotating, but it is a way, yeah.
I want to take it again just to do it.
It's kind of fun. I've always thought I just don't have the time anymore. But like creating my own class in my head, like buying a book and then just reading, watching. I've done it. Like I've gotten into
like a mentor, like
with Argento. I was doing it for a while. Like I would watch the movie, read the book I bought, and stuff like that.
We should do that somehow, like a loose version of that, not like a super structured version, but like a loose version of that, like through our like group of like poll people that we are friendly with who would be interested. And like see if we can get kind of like a faux film club. You know? That'd be fun.
That'd be fun.
I think we could make that work.
Yeah.
Even with kids, it would take a long time.
Yes.
A semester would be like a year, but we could do that. I like that idea.
So yes, that was the last time. To answer your question, that was the last time I saw it. Was about 15 years ago. Now, part of the fun of that was finding the connections between John Carpenter and Howard Hawks, because as you mentioned, and there is a very brief but very very informative interview with John Carpenter and Robert Osborne when John Carpenter was the guest programmer on TCM. It's on YouTube. He talks very briefly for a couple of minutes about Howard Hawks and his influence on him. Because of one of the criticisms lobbed at Carpenter, I don't even know if it's a criticism as an observation, is that he spent his whole career remaking the movie Rio Bravo. Rio Bravo is about...
I think he's said, yeah.
He's admitted it. Because it's about people trapped in a jail trying to survive against the forces of evil. People in a high-pressure, professionals surviving against the outside forces. And you see that throughout his filmography.
It's the siege film.
Yep.
Which is like a weird like subgenre of it's not even a subgenre, it's just like a type of movie, like it's the siege film.
Yeah, and even Halloween has that influence on it.
Halloween, Prince of Darkness.
Yep.
God, all of it. I mean, most of his movies.
I mean, Escape from New York is kind of the similar thing. They're all kind of Western Howard Hawks inspired movies about a group of people, predominantly male, surviving under pressure. Now there is always that one female. We'll get to her later.
There's two in this one, technically.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, he talked about seeing this movie as a child, and it was more just the hold on him. He saw it in Bowling Green. He grew up in Bowling Green, Kentucky, I believe. And because his original intent was to do westerns, but like that movie had such a hold on him, that's kind of what he was drawn to.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So as Carpenter fans, this is a big... in this movie, keep watching the skies at the end. He uses that, repurposes it in the fog. So part of what... so my general feelings on this, to get back to that, is I liked it when I saw it. I still like it. The thing is with 50 movies is 50s movies are like a vibe for me. Like I'm a big vibes guy. 50s movies are more... I agree with what you're saying. I do not think it's the most exciting movie in the world, but a lot of 50s movies aren't, especially 50s sci-fis. I just like the feel of them. I like throwing it on and like almost pretending like I'm at a drive-in watching these movies. What I do love about the movie is I love a lot of the kind of the Hawksian dialogue, the kind of back and forth. He had a career in kind of like screwball comedies, and I'm giving him the credit here. I know Christian Nyby directed it, but this feels like a Hawks movie, and it's kind of fitting that a mimic would direct the thing, because he's basically mimicking Howard Hawks here.
Yeah, that's funny.
So it is kind of funny in that respect. But I like a lot of the kind of the back and forth dialogue, the kind of camaraderie between the male characters, and kind of the lead strong female character that's giving it back to the men. And
she really is.
Yes, and she wants to be around the guys. She's one of the guys. I've always liked that kind of character, and that's a character that runs throughout Hawks' filmography and John Carpenter's filmography. Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff I really dig about it. It is goofy. The monster is effective at times, but also goofy.
The reveal is awesome.
Yes, it is.
It's really, really great. Like it's. I can't even imagine the reaction in the theater when that thing got revealed.
Yeah,
because it's so well handled. You know what's funny? the immediate thing I thought of for me was the Leatherface reveal in Texas Chainsaw.
Oh, that's
the
a
original.
Good, yeah.
Where he hits the guy, shuts the door. Like, 'cause it's so sudden and so... There's no, like...
It takes a moment for you to process it.
Yeah, there's no musical cue building you up to it. There's no... It just happens. It just, like in real life, things just happen. And so I love that was that is my favorite moment of the movie. Like, there's no question. Like, I love the back and forth between the guys too and all that too, but like that's my favorite moment is that monster reveal. I went, whoa, this is special. This is like really, really cool stuff. And I could immediately see the impact on Carpenter. I hate to keep talking about Carpenter during the movie.
Yeah.
But like I could immediately see like that moment. I could see Carpenter going, whoa, like I want to do that to people. Like,
and in this movie you can see, because that whole generation of film brats, guys like Carpenter and Spielberg and Scorsese and Lucas and De Palma, like those guys all point back. Well, I don't know about De Palma. I think maybe, but like they point back to these movies, seeing these movies as kids, like as like gripping them, like making them want to be filmmakers, and you can see it in a lot of their works. And you can see why when you talk about that moment, like why that would grip like the formative mind of a young person. And
you can see directors now where they were clearly affected and gripped by all the directors you just named works. So you always hear a lot of like, oh, this person's just ripping off so and so, but I'm like, no, they're not.
It's always been.
They saw something that inspired them, and they are inspired by it, and they want to incorporate that into what they're creating. So yeah,
that's art.
It is.
Yes. So basically, yes. I love this movie, but I love it in a way. I just love it makes me, when I watch it, I want to watch more 50 science fiction horror movies. Like I love the feel of the movie more than the actual like experience of like actually sitting down and watching
the movie itself. You're like,
this is a throw on in October in the background movie for me. A lot like the Universal monster movies have become for me, where I just I keep them on a loop in the background, and I just like I said, I like the vibes.
Yep, I get it.
So all right, I'm gonna run through this plot, and we're gonna stop after every paragraph.
All right,
as we do. In Anchorage, journalist Ned Scott, looking for a story, visits the Officers Club of the Alaskan Air Command, where he meets Captain Pat Hendry, his co-pilot Lieutenant Eddie Dykes, and flight navigator Ken McPherson. General Fogarty, not John, orders Hendry to fly Polar Expedition 6 at the North Pole per a request from its lead scientist, Nobel laureate Dr. Arthur Carrington. Carrington has radioed that an unusual aircraft has crashed nearby. With Scott Corporal Barnes, Crew Chief Bob, and a pack of sled dogs, Hendry pilots a Douglas C-47 Skytrain transport aircraft to the remote outpost. Stop. Okay, so real quick.
You got a favorite Fogarty song?
Let me check. I like sometimes I have to run through when you put me on the spot like this and just refresh my memory.
Look at me, I can be Centerfield.
You know what? I do not like that song.
No,
I don't like Centerfield.
I love Centerfield.
I mean, I do like Fortunate Son, but I feel like that's such an. Oh, you know what?
But Fortunate Son is not. Is that like a Fogarty like solo? Or is that him with
Credence?
Yeah, that's Credence.
Yeah, okay.
Because that's fine. We can call that. If we're calling Credence, then there's a lot way better. Like way better.
Bad Moon Rising. Is that his song? I can't remember.
That's Credence, I think, right?
Yeah. It is. God, I do. Yeah. It is Lodi.
Ah, okay.
Now that I remember it, yes. So there you go. That's my favorite Fogarty song.
All right.
This movie. So I read Frozen Hell for the first time.
Oh yeah,
talk about Frozen Hell.
Yeah. Do you have my copy of that?
No, I bought it on Kindle.
It's
like $6 on Kindle. Because it's pretty quickly. It took me about an hour and a half, probably.
It's brief.
Yeah, it's. I'll say this: if you've read the short story, Who Goes There? I don't think this adds a lot. I think it's more. I think the first couple chapters are more of like a cool discovery.
Well, Frozen Hell versus Who Goes There? Yeah. Frozen Hell doesn't add a ton. Really.
So what Frozen Hell is gentleman at Harvard was going through. I can't remember his name. His name escapes me. But
they discovered the original transcripts of John W. Campbell's Who Goes There,
Yeah.
which had, for the most part, it was basically like a couple chapters that precede where we start in the original short story, that like are the discovery of the spacecraft and a lot of the science, the pseudoscience behind what that means. And that's pretty much it. The original short story kind of starts where like they've already discovered the spacecraft, and like,
and honestly, that's the best stuff in the story. That stuff still holds up really well.
Yeah.
A lot of it is older writing if you're not of the time, but
it does hold up.
That's one of the things I wanted to mention about movies too, is like some of the stuff that's kind of dated, like that's part of why I like watching old movies. Is like I kind of like watching the old anti-commies, like the rah-rah USA stuff.
There's a charm to it, and there's like it's not nostalgia for us because we weren't around.
I think it's an interesting window into the time.
Yeah, it's a time capsule thing, but like, but you're kind of, you feel like you're learning a little bit about something you didn't actually experience. You know?
Yeah, and so there's some of that in the short story. But this movie keeps the saucer, the dogs, the research station, and the alien itself, and pretty much that's it. And
a little bit of the science versus practicality thing.
Yeah, you're right.
So science versus survival.
Yes, you're right.
A little bit of that. Yep.
There are a couple things that happen around this time. So the Roswell incident, and then Kenneth Arnold, he was the first person like after World War II that sighted a UFO in the U.S.
Okay.
It was kind of like the first UFO sighting. I think he found saw 9 lights in the sky or whatever. But those two cases kind of heavily influenced science fiction around the time. Majorly.
Yeah.
Like you see a lot of it after that.
So much.
A lot of flying saucer stuff, a lot of alien invasion stuff, body snatcher stuff. But Hawks was shooting I Was a Male War Bride at the time, and he read the original short story novella. And that's when he decided to make it. So it was in the air at the time. So I
think it was a wise choice. I think like it's a story that's ripe for an adaptation. Like I think that right now, if like you had a version of Who Goes There that came out, it would be bought up so quick. It'd be like a 12 episode.
Is Blumhouse
streaming.
Still doing? I know they bought the rights to Frozen Hell.
My understanding is but no one's doing anything right now.
Because Carpenter, right. Because Carpenter was like going to be a consultant on it.
I would guess he'd do the score too.
He didn't do the score for the thing.
That I know, but he wrote a shit ton of music for it.
Yeah.
And if you listen to Morricone's score, it's kind of
now
Carpenter.
I hope, it is. Now I hope they were like. I was kind of like whatever about it. Now I just want it for the score.
Yeah.
I hope this is.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Plus, I know that I really truly think they would do as much of the effects practical as they could.
Yeah.
And I like that's the one thing about that thing. The Thing remake is actually like okay as a movie.
I watched it. Yeah, I watched
not remake. It's
about a
prequel.
year or so back.
It's okay as what it is.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start throwing in that goofy CG stuff, that hurts it a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not saying it's great, but
I don't hate that movie.
It's a better movie than it gets credit
it's
for.
a little dull for me at times too.
Yep.
Back to the plot here, if you're good.
Yep.
Upon arrival, Scott and the airmen meet radio operator Tex, Dr. Chapman, his wife Mrs. Chapman, a man named Lee, who is one of 2 cooks, and the Inuit dog handlers. Also present are scientists Voorhees, Stern, Redding, Stone, Lawrence, Wilson, Ambrose,
Voorhees, by the way.
Olson, Carrington. Hendry later rekindles his romance with Nikki Nicholson. We're getting there, don't worry. Because Willie and I have a lot to say about this, I'm sure. Carrington's secretary. Several scientists fly with the airmen to the crash site, finding a large object buried beneath the ice. That's from the short story. As they spread out, determine the object's shape, they realize, oh, wait, is that from the short story? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm blanking because I know they mix in some other
it's
stuff.
not terribly far off from the original story at this point.
Yep. They have discovered a flying saucer. The team attempts to melt the ice covering the saucer with thermite, but a violent reaction with the craft's metal alloy completely destroys it. Their Geiger counter, however, detects a frozen body buried nearby. This is like the first use of an on-screen Geiger counter, by the way.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of the first times you see like the beeping.
That's fun.
So, it is excavated in a large block of ice and loaded aboard the C-47 transport. They fly out as an Arctic storm closes in on their sight. Let's talk about how horny this movie is.
Very horny.
It's a bunch of rowdy military men.
Rowdy, lonely military fellas. So basically, anytime that who's the character? It's Captain Henry.
Yeah.
Anytime he's speaking,
do you believe in Captain Henry?
My God,
that's a joke for
that was good. Thank you for that.
People.
Yeah, I'm giggling right now. Anytime he is speaking, or somebody is speaking to him or about him, it is about him bedding or wanting to bed a lady. That's it. That's his whole. And he doesn't seem to like take much of what's going on all that seriously.
He's like a cartoon character, yeah, with like when the mouth is open, they're going.
Yeah, with the eyes popping out, like the mask, like Jim Carrey's The Mask, like his eyes.
Every woman is just Cameron Diaz with the mask.
Exactly, that's him, and I love it so much. He is something else. What I want to say is like, and it's not just because my wife shares her name, Nikki Nicholson, played by Margaret Sheridan.
Yeah.
She feels very progressive to me. Like, now, look, I was not around when this movie was made or released. Maybe it wasn't that progressive. But to me, when I think of 51?
Yeah.
I don't think of women being this forward in 51.
Mm-hmm.
Could be wrong. I don't think about that. I was impressed by, like, how much agency she had in the relationship. Like, she wears the pants in this relationship.
Yeah.
Like, she's calling the shots. She's kind of like...
she mentions tying him down, doesn't she?
And then she does tie him up a little bit. I like Nikki. I like her. She's got the gusto, and I appreciate that. So
there are a couple
very
things.
Horny.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we texted, we joked about it, but it mentions like a little bit of rope play.
There's some BDSM stuff going on.
A little bit of 50 Shades of thing here, but like, there's a thing called the Hawksian woman. It was coined by a film critic, Naomi Wise, but it's like you mentioned. I don't necessarily know if like they're a feminist character or if you want to describe it as, but they're the good girl and the bad girl kind of fused into one single heroine. And that's something that is all the way throughout Carpenter's movies as well. He always has Hawksian women throughout his movies.
Isn't that kind of like people, though, right?
Yes,
like,
yeah, for sure.
I mean, it feels real to me. Like there's like good and bad to everybody. Like good, I'm using air quotes because there's nothing bad about this character, but like there's a little bit of a, you know.
But you're right. Like a lot of movies of that time, his movies, like, I mean, because he did a lot of screwball comedies. He did a lot of, and his leading ladies were always kind of very verbose and witty. Yep. And they preferred to hang with the guys.
Why not?
Yep, they preferred to hang with the guys. It was, there was a Jean-Luc Godard once opined that Howard Hawks was incapable of seeing the difference between a man and a woman. So there you go. It's Margaret Sheridan's first film. She was a fashion model, and Hawks was taken with her. I think a lot of the stuff that plays into the camaraderie, a lot of the supporting cast they were close with Hawks and Nyby. And they picked an area in Montana that didn't get snow, so they had to like wait for snow, and they all just kind of hung out and played poker with each other.
I love it.
One last thing I want to mention before we move on here. Well, the Thing is not horny in this movie. They make sure to mention he has no sexual desires.
He's not into it. No, he just seems to kind of growl and stomp.
Yes. Dr. Carrington says he has no sexual factors at all.
He growls and stomps. That's his thing.
So,
no pun intended.
That falls into the bloodless, not horny commies, like us randy Americans.
Right.
The last thing I want to mention, too, just real quick, is the Hays Code was still kind of in effect around this time. The Hays Code is like the self-imposed guidelines from 1934 to 1968 that they prohibited profanity, suggestive nudity, graphic or realistic violence. A lot of effect on horror movies, especially around this time. That's why like the 40s aren't a big time for horror, because that was pretty, like, the war was going on, and that was pretty hardcore in effect as well. Mm-hmm. So you see a lot of movies that kind of try to skirt by that, and that's what when you texted me, that's what clicked in my head, because that is very obviously when they're talking about tying him up, and like they're talking about their past.
Yeah, for sure.
It's very obviously them winking at the audience, and that you've talked a little bit earlier about how the 1950s were dirty, filthy. There's filthiness
behind the scenes.
There's filthiness throughout a lot of those movies in the 40s and 50s that you just have to look for and you have to listen for.
It's not that when you watch it through like 2023 eyes, you go, whoa.
Yep.
I see what you're doing. Back then, it might some of it might have just kind of gone.
Some of it went over
maybe
the head,
I don't know.
But then I think a lot of probably adults going to the theater, they got it.
Yeah, they probably they were looking at their partner going, like, I see what they did there.
Yeah, we'll take the kids the thing and we'll put them to bed a little early tonight.
Let's have some fun.
Hendry assumes command of the outpost and pending radio instructions from General Fogarty, denies Scott permission to send out his story. He also denies the scientist's demands to examine the body. Tex, love these names, sends an update to Fogarty, and the airmen settle in as the storm arrives. A watch is posted. Barnes relieves McPherson, and, disturbed by the creature's appearance in clearing ice, covers it with an electric blanket. You like electric blankets?
Never used one.
Not a fan. I don't like. Everyone I've ever had has like a weird plug that bothers me. Like it like you can feel the hard plastic.
Never used one. Yeah. Have you used like a heating pad?
Heating pad,
like for your back, like if your back sore or whatever, but never an electric blanket. No. Never.
Yeah.
You use a weighted blanket?
No, that would freak me out. I think
right?
a weighted
for suffocating or something. Yeah. Okay.
Which he does not realize is plugged in the electric blanket.
Big dummy.
The blocks.
Everybody knows. Hey, everybody knows that Barnes is a big dummy.
Yes.
Unplug it.
The block slowly thaws, and the creature, still alive, escapes into the storm and is attacked by the sled dogs. The airmen recover the creature's severed arm after the attack. Stop. All right. Yeah. So this is a creature. What do you got to say about the creature?
Not a lot. It's a guy in a suit. He's got cool claw hand kind of things. It's a guy in a suit. Like this is very 50s. It is what it is. I'm sure that if they had the ability to do zanier things, they would have. It's a guy in a suit. They found a big dude, big stunt man that they could light on fire. They put some prosthetics on him. They call it a day. But I do actually like I think the scene where he's fighting the sled dogs is relatively effective.
It's pretty cool.
Yes. So I don't dislike that. That kind of works for me. Like a lot of it's done in silhouette, and there's a lot of keeping the monster under wraps even in those moments. So I appreciate that. It builds suspense for the inevitable reveal, for sure.
So about the creature suit here, they wanted it to go bigger with it. They didn't have the budget. They wanted like the body to pulsate and shift and all sorts of stuff. They didn't. A lot of the changes came down to budgetary reasons. Yeah. Makes sense. RKO Studios was one of the big five back in the day, along with like Universal and MGM. They were acquired in 1948 by Howard Hughes. Remember old Howard Hughes?
I do.
Yeah, he actually had a working relationship with Howard Hawks. He produced his Scarface from 1932.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so they had a working relationship. He was in charge of the time, and he wanted to make some big monster. He actually ran the studio into the ground, and it's in the 50s, like a few years after this movie
Smooth move
came out. This movie did pretty well. Like it's the biggest of those sci-fi movies that year. Okay. The Day the Earth Stood Still came out, but in the book he's like a big blue-skinned monster with like crazy hair. And,
he's got tentacles on his head and multiple red eyes, and yeah. There's a whole thing, and of course he can mimic people still in the book. None of that's here.
Yeah, none of that's here. Yeah, and they didn't have the budget. Hughes was originally drawn to that because he wanted to do a big monster movie, but not like a he didn't want like a big like monster. He wanted something different,
like a giant monster.
He didn't want like a old Universal movie. Lee Greenway was in charge of designing the Thing. They couldn't find a design they like, and so Hawks said, "Just make the monster look like Frankenstein's monster. Just make it look like that,
and we'll go." Yeah, and that's kind of what they do. Yeah.
So yeah, they hired James Arness to play the monster. He was like 6'7". He would go on to star in Gunsmoke. It was just a silver suit with green makeup. He didn't like the movie, and he said he looked like a big carrot. he disowned the movie, hated it.
Fair. I don't think he looked like a carrot, though. I mean,
no. They say he's a vegetable, so I think he just said, "Oh, I look like a carrot." Stupid. Yeah. RKO Horror, of course. What's weird is that the rights were produced in 1980. They were bought by Wilbur Snyder, and he was going to produce a bunch of these RKO pictures. Ended up being just the Thing, but they had a history in horror. King Kong, a lot of the Val Lewton movies, and the Val Lewton movies like Cat People, The Leper Man. They all had these big like kind of catchy names like that, the kind of schlocky names, but they were all done very straightforward, and they would always obscure the monster, which the Thing I think does pretty effectively.
Yeah,
so.
I agree.
So
they do a nice job of keeping it kind of under wraps for the most part.
They try to obscure it because I think they know that they're dealing with a big 7 foot
hulking
Frankenstein guy.
Not the highest quality we're dealing with here.
The scientists examine the arm, concluding that the alien is an advanced form of plant life. Carrington is convinced of its superiority to humans and becomes intent on communicating with it. The airmen begin a search, which leads to the outpost greenhouse. Carrington stays behind with Voorhees. Stern. Do you think he's like? Do you want to start some lore here and say he's like
the great grandfather of
Pamela?
Great grandfather.
Well, I guess maybe just be the dad of Pamela.
Might be, yeah, Pamela's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Well, but wait a second, because is Pamela's maiden name Voorhees? No.
Oh no, she was married Elias. So maybe she's the father of Elias.
It's Elias's grandfather.
I could see that in Elias. Maybe because Voorhees was he the scientist or a military man? I can't remember.
He was a military guy, I think.
Maybe that's it. Maybe he was such like a hardcore.
He was away a lot.
He was away a lot, and like when he came home, like he's very strict with Elias, and Elias
maybe he had
rebelled.
some like kind of like weird like half stories about what happened in the Arctic, and Elias got into the occult because of that.
Yeah.
He didn't think it was science. He thought it was mysticism.
Yeah.
I like that.
There you go.
Let's do it.
Take that.
Let's tie it together.
Stern and Lawrence, having noticed evidence of alien activity, they discovered a third sled dog hidden away, which had all of its blood drained. The carnivorous plant creature feeds on blood. Carrington and the scientists post a secret watch of their own, hoping to encounter the alien before the airmen find it. The next morning, the airmen continue their search. Tex informs them that Fogarty is aware of the discovery and demands further information, now prevented by the fierce storm. Stern appears badly injured and tells the group that the creature has killed Auerbach and Olsen. When the airmen investigate, the alien attacks them. They manage to barricade it inside the greenhouse. Hendry confronts Carrington and orders him to remain in his lab and in the corners. Okay, we're gonna stop because
this is the good stuff. This is where we get we finally get like the military and science men actually confronting the creature, which I dig. I love this stuff. This is where we finally kind of built the suspense to this point where we can see that the showdown happen, as it were, and it does happen, and like I said, the creature reveal is great, and then it just kind of doesn't happen anymore. This is my favorite moment in the movie, but also like where I start to go, so we get to see the monster once, and then like it just kind of goes away for a long time again, which is true, but yeah. I do like the debate between like killing the monster and keeping it alive for scientific purposes. I like that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I think it's strong, especially for a movie of this time. I think that it's we still deal in real life with like science versus emotion sometimes, and sometimes I think people could be swayed either way. And I like that debate, and I think it works pretty well in this movie, all things considered. So, yeah.
So there are some, like you mentioned, this falls very firmly on the side of the military men.
This one does, yes.
This might be what you, I would say, I've heard some people call it anti-science. I don't know if it's anti-science. I do think it may be pro-military, but that's something of its time.
I agree.
I don't think but it's a bit of a, like, you've got these conservative military men, and they're like, they got to put up with this old lib scientist.
He's a bit much.
Yeah, he's a scold. He's a nuisance.
He's not great at selling himself.
No, he's not. And then the best part is, and this is how you know the movie sides with the military men, is like, Carrington, like he's like worshiping the thing. He's like, this is the greatest thing ever. It's wiser than we are.
He
sure
knows
of
nothing
it.
about it.
He's just convinced because it's an alien. I've always told you my dream movie. Well, it's Mars Attacks. Basically, is like the aliens land and they're just idiots. Like they're stupid. Like we're actually smarter than them.
He's so sweet.
Yeah, they're just good at building spaceships that can travel.
And they become like a burden. Like,
so this guy, he's convinced, like, just because this is an alien, like, this is the greatest thing ever. And it ties into the whole communism reading that is there. These pinko libs loving the commies. So anyway, but then he's like worshiping the thing, and the thing just bats him away.
It's so sweet.
It's the best.
Smacks the shit out of him.
It's the best, because that's when the movie takes its stand. And you know what? I appreciate that.
At least has a stance.
Yep. Carrington, obsessed with the alien, shows Nicholson and the other scientists his experiment. Using seeds taken from the severed arm, he has been growing small alien plants by feeding them from the blood plasma supply.
This is not smart. I'm pro-science, but this is not a good idea.
No, he's a bit wacky. Yeah. But that's a horror thing, too, is like the wacky. I mean, mad scientist movies. Yeah. Henry finds the plasma missing when it is needed to treat Stern, which leads them to Carrington. So there are some horror fans that won't admit that there are a lot of horror fans that won't admit that a lot of these subgenres and genres are very conservative.
Oh, for sure.
The slasher movie is incredibly conservative a lot of the time. Yeah.
It is. Yes, it is. It is. And it also isn't. Like,
I think there are differing readings on them.
It's
with different movies, some have a more conservative streak than others.
Yeah, for sure. Yep. I do think that a lot of slasher movies are pro women.
Yeah, and
even if they're conservative in their morals, they are equal opportunity in terms of who they're punishing.
You're right, and there are different.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it's not always black and white either.
Right.
Yeah, they may be, like you said, strict.
Morally, I think they're very conservative a lot of the time. Like
yes.
It is absolutely like the characters that are having sex or whatever, like doing drugs, they tend to get killed. But it is very equal opportunity, like male and female. Like there's no differentiation between. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
and the other thing I want to mention, I want to tie this back to Carpenter too. Again, is they talk about how, and he's said how inspired he is by Howard Hawks. Howard Hawks, like you look at this movie, it's very pro-military. That's not John Carpenter.
It's not.
No, that is not. Like, I don't think you can make a reading of that in any of his movies.
I think the difference here is, and Carpenter doesn't use a lot of military characters in his movies as his protagonists.
Mm-hmm.
He usually uses like anti-establishment.
Yes.
Like Laurie Strode is anti-establishment.
Yes.
Her establishment is like the party girls.
Mm-hmm.
Snake Plissken is like the epitome of anti-establishment.
Yeah.
Like he loves that anti-establishment like character. So it's not the military thing he's attracted to. What he's attracted to is people who are professionals.
Yeah.
He is in this movie, it happens to be military people.
Yes.
But in his films, it can be anybody from a police officer to a babysitter to a scientific researcher.
Mm-hmm.
So like it doesn't like he likes characters that aren't children. He likes characters that are well versed in their area of expertise, but who are still outclassed by whatever's going on.
Exactly.
So
good. Yep.
Yeah.
Good point. Fogarty transmits orders to keep the creature alive, but it escapes from the greenhouse and attacks the airmen in the corners. They douse it with buckets of kerosene and set it aflame, forcing it to retreat into the storm. So now this is also one of the first full burn stunts ever recorded on.
It goes on for so long.
It's nuts, right?
It's too I felt very uncomfortable. I was like, oh shit.
This is Kane Hodder. This is the Kane Hodder story. He attempts to do a full burn for somebody and he burns himself. Yeah, is like that's like his story, but like this is like the full burn is a stuntman thing.
Yep.
And this is one of the first movies to do it. Yep. And you're right, it is a prolonged shot.
Yeah, it could have been multiple takes, I don't know, but it looked rough.
After regrouping, they realize that their building's temperature is falling rapidly. The furnaces have stopped working, sabotaged by the alien. They retreat to the station's generator to keep warm and rig an electrical fly trap. The alien continues to stalk them, but at the last moment, Carrington attempts to communicate, pleading with the creature, and knocks him aside. There you go. Walks into the trap and
knocked the fuck out by the monster.
So this, I also love it too. On Henry's order, is reduced to a pile of ash. I love it too because it swats aside the scientist, and the creature reveals himself to be a dumbass.
Yeah.
It just walks into the fly trap.
Yeah.
It's so great.
It turns out Carrington was so wrong.
Yeah, it's so wrong. Like this, maybe this is why I love the movie, because we do get a dumb alien that's just kind of like
a big dumb blubbering, just goofball. Yeah.
So the the movie is of its time. It's got the anti-communist. You got to remember, this is the beginning of the Cold War. It's a movie about an alien that's going to turn you into a vegetative state and sap you of all your individuality. And if you're American, that's what you pride yourself on, is your individuality.
America.
Yep. So, when the weather clears, Scotty is finally able to file his story of a lifetime by a radio to a room full of reporters in Anchorage. He ends his broadcast with a warning. Tell the world. Tell this to everybody, wherever they are. Watch the skies everywhere. Keep looking. Keep watching the skies.
That's a cool moment.
Fantastic ending. Like one of the all-time great,
really great
endings in science fiction. We mentioned Carpenter would repurpose it.
Yeah.
In The Fog.
Yep.
So
funny, not in The Thing. Funny enough.
Great.
Interestingly enough.
Well, he ends it with a different kind of paranoia.
There's almost no better ending. Yeah. We won't even. Yeah. But no, the ending is strong, and I think the journalist at the end kind of relaying that message to his peers is very, very strong, and the movie goes out on a high note. It does. I do wish that we had a bit more action with the Thing and with the troops kind of fighting the Thing. There are an insane amount of like military and scientist characters in this movie that just get named randomly, who I forget about completely.
When we were going through,
I was like, "Who's Tex?"
Summary. Like there were so many guys. You really only need a couple.
I'm like, who gets like? Why doesn't nobody get killed in this movie? Like, technically, 2 people do. You don't see it, which is fine. But yeah, it's.
You're right, and it does get like from the short story. The blood test is in the short story.
And like half the camp is, it's actually more than Carpenter's movie in the story. If I remember, like it's like half the camp is the Thing already. So I it sounds weird, but like I wish there was a little bit more of a body count in this movie. Like I wish the Thing like was able to take out 1 or 2 guys before, so you could really establish that, like, how threatening it really was. Just a nitpick. I guess.
I'm gonna ask you a question, and then we're gonna get out of here. Well, it's kind of a 2-parter, sorry.
Okay.
Have you read the Dark Horse comic that was spun out of the Carpenter thing?
Yes.
How was it? Good?
No.
What is your... Okay, so then that probably answers this part of the next question, but what is your favorite version of this story? All right, so I'm going to list off a bunch of them. Excuse me. The short story, Frozen Hell, this movie, the Carpenter movie, the video game, the remake, or the Dark Horse comic?
Carpenter's movie.
Okay.
And I think all the best stuff that's come out of this, if you want to call it a franchise, it's really not a franchise, but like if you want to call it that, this property, that stuff is based around Carpenter's stuff. Because the video game is very good.
Video game is very good. You know what I need to do? I think I've said this before. I need to just watch a walkthrough of that game sometime.
It's worth it. Yeah. I have, actually, weirdly enough. I'm
Just
not
throw
a
it
big
on,
watching a walkthrough thing, but like at that game, I was like, yeah, I'll watch that. Because you can't play it anywhere anymore. I do think the Thing, the remake or whatever it was, is not bad. It's not great, but it's not like some horrible thing. And the Dark Horse comics aren't great, but like once again, they're based on that Carpenter vision of what the Thing is, and so I think his is definitely the strongest of the bunch, even counting the original short story. I think his trumps it for me. So
yeah, I would say he does what a great adaptation does, which is finds that kernel of greatness in the short story and then
somehow extrapolates on that and like makes it his own and improves upon it. Yeah,
I would agree with you. I have a soft spot for The Thing from Another World, but
sure.
I would agree with you. I like I like most of the versions of this that I've.
I don't hate any of it.
Yeah,
no,
yeah, it's a cool.
The board game's great too.
The board game is great. Yes, the board game is a ton of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. I forgot all about that.
Me too.
That is based on the Carpenter version.
Yeah.
All right.
Excellent. I think next time is Freddy versus Jason.
I think we did a pretty good job with this. Yeah, next episode. All right, we're coming up on the 20th anniversary of a very important film for us.
A crucial, like a landmark.
We're not going to... I think like what we need to do next time is just free-form discussion. Freddy versus Jason. Just go on for about an hour about the movie.
I think you're right. It's not
talk about some of the different. Are you familiar with a lot of the different scripts?
Yeah. I've read up on them. I think I want to say I borrowed a book from you.
Slash of the Titans.
I've read up on them for sure. So yeah, I am. But I just want to talk Freddy vs. It's a movie that's a ton of fun. It came out at a very like a kind of a weirdly important time in my life that it came out. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to just riff on it and just talk about it.
Then we're going to record our Tiny Terror that is going to be even more important to us. We are going to do a bracket based around the Freddy vs. Jason soundtrack.
Still have my CD?
Yeah, me too.
Garage.
Me too.
Yep.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yep. I'll never get rid of it. It probably doesn't play anymore. It's probably so scratched that it...
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point because it's flying around in the bottom of my car for years.
Yep.
I'll find it. I know where it is. It's in my trunk.
It's important, though.
It is important. I will not get rid of it ever.
No.
So we will, and I'm going to give it another spin soon, or at least somewhere I can find it. So
virtual spin.
Those are our next two, in addition to everything else we got out. Oh, we didn't even mention what the game nerds are doing. They're back. So
They're back, baby.
check out the Midwest
Check
Game
'em out.
Nerds. They're doing cool shit. So.
Always.
All right, Willie, let's get out of here.
Let's do it.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe.